G'day and welcome to Redriven. Now, a great way to guarantee failure is trying to be everything to everyone all the time, which is why the Nissan Dualis, or Qashqai, depending on where you're watching this from, is a very risky vehicle. It's attempting to be an SUV for people that don't want a hatchback, but it's still trying to be like a big hatchback for those that don't want a full-size SUV. It's even made by a Japanese manufacturer, which generally means, reliability and longevity, but Nissan is part of Renault, which is a French manufacturer, and French manufacturers aren't generally renowned for their reliability. So now that these are getting a little bit old in age and are getting many thousands of kilometers on them, what actually goes wrong with them? What do they like to live with every day? What do they cost to own and maintain? And most importantly, should you buy one? Let's find out. Now, before we get deep into the Dualis/Qashqai, can you please do us a favor and hit those like, subscribe, and bell icon buttons? And after the video, go and follow us on all the socials. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video, here in Australia, we call these a Dualis, but everywhere else in the world, this is a Qashqai. And look, in this video, we will be focusing on the Australian variants of the Dualis. But if you're not from Australia, don't freak out, because everything we're going over should relate to Dualises and Qashqais, or whatever the hell they're called, in your local market. This first generation J10 was produced from 2006 to 2013 and available here in Australia in primarily 3 different trim levels, with the option of either petrol or diesel engines, although the diesel wasn't available in Australia until 2013. A choice of manual or automatic transmissions were also available, as well as front wheel or all-wheel drive, but again, it depends on spec and variant. 2010 brought with it a mid-life styling and equipment update and the introduction of this model, the slightly longer 7-seat Dualis Plus 2, also called the Qashqai Plus 2. And look, we'd love to go into every graphic detail of every variant in this video, but we can't, it would just take far too long. But we have done that, and we've put it in our handy Redriven cheat sheets. Our cheat sheets are invaluable, as they provide a full breakdown of the car's model range, its common problems, what you need to look out for before handing over your hard-earned cash, how much of that cash you should be handing over, and so much more. Check it out at redriven.com or in the link below. So, does it look good? Well, one of the big selling points of this car was the way it looks, because it kind of brings like a tough, nuggety appearance to what can generally be a pretty boring category of car. When I say tough, it's not like UFC fighter tough. It's more like Zac Efron's done some push-ups kind of tough, but yeah, I think it looks good. As far as quality and what to watch out for when it comes to the exterior, there are a few things to watch out for. First up, there are reports of this chrome finish kind of cracking and peeling off, but it actually can get quite sharp. It's almost like the car's trying to stab you for getting in the car. That's not ideal. We also know of reports where the tailgate locking mechanism can get really rattly, and it's because it wasn't attached properly when it was built. Even worse, when people have taken them back to dealers have just kind of wrapped them in insulation tape, and that insulation tape's now wearing, and now they're rattling around inside the tailgate again. Not ideal. Also, there are loads of reports of this black plastic trim section kind of getting brittle now and breaking off. They're actually breaking off on some of these when they were new. And it's not good, because this holds the lights for the number plate and also the handle and lock for the tailgate. So that kind of falling off, bit of a nightmare. Also, they're apparently a nightmare to find, and they're like hundreds of dollars. Also, there are reports of the windscreens leaking, which leads to condensation in the car, which means that your car's going to smell like a wet dog, and only wet dogs like the smell of wet dogs. Also, go over the whole car and look at all the panel gaps. Are they consistent? On this car, they are consistent, but on many of them, they're not consistent. And again, it's because of some shoddy build quality back at the factory. There are also reports of these door rubbers. The glue that holds these on is, again, getting brittle and falling apart, so the door rubbers can just fall off, and it's just annoying and feels a bit cheap. Also, there are reports of the key not recognizing its proximity to the car, or the car not recognizing the key, so you can't unlock or sometimes lock the car. Also, the black plastic on a lot of these is not black anymore. It's getting that really gross kind of gray color. On this particular car, all of that stuff works. It's all fine, but yeah, these are renowned for some issues. So, how's the interior? Well, it's pretty boring. It's like a sea of grey, hard plastic in here. And from a design aspect, like, you know how some old things, they're going to get cool again, like vinyl and like Polaroid cameras? This is not one of those things. This is getting old, and I can't imagine this is ever going to be cool ever again. It wasn't even cool when it was new. Now, things to watch out for and issues in here. Sit tight, because there's plenty of them. Here we go. There are stacks of reports of the power windows either failing, stopping halfway, just not working at all. not good. The gauge clusters, they can fail completely, but it's not that important because knowing what speed you're doing or how much fuel you've got left is hardly important, is it? There are reports that the seatbelt can rip through the plastic that holds them, but again, seatbelts, not that important. There's loads of reports of all this plastic around the stereo and all around the center console just turning to utter crap. This one's okay, but again, not great. The leather seats, I'm pretty sure this isn't leather. I think it's like a kind of vinyl. Like, it doesn't look that shiny. The steering wheel does. The steering wheel is like, it's gone ultra shiny, but the seats just don't feel right. Even from a seating position, it's like a dodgy massage. Like, I can't get comfortable. There's something weird sticking them at back. Yeah. Also on the fabric seats, because the material they've used is really, really thin, there are stacks of reports of that just wearing away and getting holes and tears in it. So again, if you're getting one of these, go over everything with a fine tooth comb. As far as this particular car goes, look, the levels of squidge are okay. Everything else is pretty hard. The paint's wearing off down here on the shift, that's moving around a whole bunch. Whole center console kind of moves. All the switch gear feels, it almost feels like the switch gear, it's like there's jelly behind it, or like an eraser. It just feels a bit rubbery. And yeah, wear and tear. Oh yeah, all this paint around here is all kind of peeling off. And this chrome's getting a bit scratchy. Not real good, Nissan, Renault, whoever made it. Okay, the back seat. I'm 2.055 yards tall. This is in my driving position. It's not very comfy back here. Like, if I've got my knees inside this little alcove here and I sit like I'm in a textbook kind of crash test dummy seating position, it's still not that comfortable, to be honest. But then you put your knees either side, it starts rubbing against there. You sit way too upright. The seats aren't that comfortable. The glass house is lovely. It's got this enormous, enormous sunroof. But besides that, yeah, positioning, not great. As far as wear and tear goes, it's not too bad. Like, all the plastics are pretty hard, but they're not quite hard enough to resist scratches because even the hard plastic is kind of scratched up. And whatever material this is, I don't know if it's leather, it's not vinyl. I don't actually know what it is. It's actually not wearing too badly back here. And this gets a bit of use in the back seat, but that's not too bad. In the third row, I've sat in the boot of a Mazda MX-5 and the boot of a Lotus Exige. Getting in and out of this third row is the least graceful thing I've ever done. And now I'm back here. This is ridiculous. There's no headroom, no knee room, no room for my feet. Okay, I'm a tall man, but unless you're a child, this is not going to happen for adults. It's not a 7-seater. How's the tech? Well, it depends on year, model, and spec, but overall not great. Forget Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or any kind of modern phone connectivity. That's not going to happen. It does have Bluetooth and a USB and auxiliary input, but again, if it has that, depends on the spec and model that you have. To find out exactly which spec has what equipment, make sure you check out our cheat sheets or listen to me doing this voiceover. Depending on year and spec, cruise control, dual zone climate control, a reversing camera with Nissan's around view monitor, and a 5-inch colour display screen with satellite navigation were also available. However, the camera quality is a joke, and the screen's such low resolution and such crappy brightness that you can't actually see what's going on during daytime. It's rubbish. Is it practical? Well, it actually has one of the smallest boots in its class, and when it's in 7-seat form, it has almost no storage space. However, this is pretty cool. There's like a hidden cubby hole here for your parcel shelf, or parcel blind, or parcel tray, whatever you want to call that. There's a spot for it there. That's cool. Okay, practicality in the third row. There's nothing. There's this that you can play with if you like to be a cat. That's it. Nothing. No cup holders. Nothing. Bloody hell. And practicality in the back seat, you've got matte pockets, although that bit holding it on is sort of falling apart. And how cool is this? It has the world's biggest armrest with a couple of cup holders and this cool kind of trapdoor style storage unit system. Pretty cool. Not that comfortable, but it's large and cool. And you've got door bins, but again, they're not really big enough for anything. They're quite small. Besides that, that's it for practicality. And practicality up front, you've got door bins that aren't really wide enough to hold anything kind of decent. There's a spot for credit cards or business cards just there, because that's going to be needed. There's a spot for ping pong balls just here. There's 2 cup holders, but they're different sizes because, of course, you and your passenger are going to drink 2 completely different sized drinks. There's a slidey center console here. That actually goes quite deep. That's some good storage. And the glove box is so deep. You can put heaps of stuff in there. Lucky because there's not a great amount of practicality up front besides that. So besides all the issues that I've already mentioned, what mechanically goes wrong with these things? Well, look, I'm not a mechanic, I'm not qualified to tell you, but Jim is.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is one of those cases where Renault's influence on Nissan was not such a good thing. The diesels in the Dualis, they're very uncommon, but they are to be avoided because they have horrible problems with EGR problems, DPF problems, you name it, they have problems. Definitely to be avoided. The petrols are not so bad. A more reliable engine, but the CVT gearboxes are terrible. The steering and suspension, they just seem like they're really built on a budget, and you can feel that when you drive it, and their reliability is pretty ordinary too. We have a lot of problems with wheel bearings and shock absorbers and things. It's definitely a car built on a budget, and if you're looking at one, you really need to make sure it's been looked after and had a really good solid service history. If you're looking at one, just check all the lights. The tail lights have a problem where the LED light, the circuit board in there shorts out, and you've got to buy a whole new light to replace it, and they're pretty expensive. We see a lot of wheel bearing problems with these things. We see suspension struts leaking. And I know Adam's probably covered it, but they have external body issues, bits just fall off them. To be honest, it's just a really horrible floppy car.
Is it safe? Well, like sort of. It includes 6 airbags and electronic stability control, helping it achieve the maximum 5-star rating from our local crash tester, NCAP. But that was way back in 2010, so it does miss out on a lot of the modern safety tech that we are now used to. So what's it like to drive? Well, it's a bit meh, you know? Meh. So vision out the front isn't too bad. Like the mirrors kind of feel overly large for, you know, the size of this car, and there's a bit of a blind spot over the back near the C-pillar, but like it's pretty easy to judge through, you know, tight spots and car parks and things like that. As far as ride quality and suspension goes, look, these things weren't great when new, and now this has got a few years and a few thousand Ks on it. It's getting worse. It's somehow, it doesn't absorb bumps. It feels like it just kind of skates and shimmies all over the top of them. But at the same time, when you start going through some corners, it also kind of pitches and wallows and rolls everywhere. So somehow it's unbelievably firm on bumps, yet still kind of floaty and boat-like at the same time. Both of those things are not ideal. The steering it's kind of overly light. Like I know that if I turn this thing, then those round things at the front, they change direction and the car changes trajectory, but there's no communication. It just feels a bit light and sloppy, like driving a wet sponge. Also with the suspension, it feels like something's about to fall out of the bottom of the car. Like when you start bouncing and shimmying over all the bumps and potholes and crappy Australian roads, this feels inherently unstable underneath. This car is fitted with the petrol engine, and it exists. We're now going up a hill, there's 2 of us in the car, my foot is flat to the floor, and yet we're not making progress very quickly at all. Also, it doesn't sound very good. So the engine, there is an engine, it sort of does the job, it just doesn't do the job very well. Speaking of sounds, as far as rattles and creaks and noises, yes to all of the above. There are some hectic rattles and squeaks and creaks coming from the back. Again, it sounds almost structural, like the car might fall apart. Any bump you hit, you can feel through the chassis of the car and the whole thing kind of booms and shakes. There's road noise, there's wind noise, there's lots of noises, none of which are pleasant. Also, the CVT gearbox, in terms of sound, it just sounds sad. It goes, it's just like you can always hear the car struggling with a lack of power. And then when it changes gears, it's like, oh, I don't want to. Not great. So overall, like it's not very inspiring, and it's also not all that effortless to use either. It's just. It's weird that a company that can pump out cars as amazing as like a 370Z or GTR, or even Renault Megane, Renault Clio, all those, you know, hot hatches. It's annoying that a company like that can build something as vanilla and boring as this. Pricing here in Australia starts from as low as like $5,000 for early base spec models that are probably falling apart and riddled with issues. And it tops out at around about $20,000 for late model, mint condition, low kilometre examples with perfect service histories. Nissan claim a fuel consumption figure of between 4.5 to 8.6 litres per 100 Ks on these, depending on, you know, engine, transmission, front-wheel drive, all drive, what spec, all that sort of stuff. This particular car has a claimed fuel consumption of 8.2 litres per 100 Ks, but on this test, we're seeing figures over 9.5. Nissan offered a 3-year, 100,000 kilometre warranty on all of these, which means they're all well and truly out of warranty, and that's mildly terrifying after hearing what Jim had to say about them. And servicing is recommended at every 6 months or 10,000 kilometres, and make sure you keep that servicing up because, yeah, after what Jim said. Ugh. So, should you buy one? Look, we know there's plenty of people out there that love these things and haven't had a drama. The person that owns this particular one, she adores it. But they're a bit shit. The potential problems looming are just far too probable in our opinion. And look, they're not aging all that well, and when there are so many better alternatives out there for the same sort of money, why would you buy one? So no, you should not buy a Nissan Dualis or Qashqai, whatever the hell it's called. This thing proves that a guaranteed way to fail is trying to be everything to everyone all the time. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and hey, what do you think of the Dualis/Qashqai? Let us know in the comment section below. And remember, hit those like, subscribe, and bell icon buttons, and go and follow us on all the socials. See you next time. Nissan offered a warranty of Nissan offered a warranty of 3 years, or builds condensation inside the car, so your car ends up selling blah 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 blah. Here we go. Nissan, f me, come on. A 3-year, 100,000 kilometre warranty on. Oh, you f***er. Here we go. Oh shit, that's not storage, that's fuses. Okay. A 3-year, 100,000 kilometre warranty on. Sorry. Here we go. Warranty or any factory support, and that's mildly terrifying after hearing what Jim had to say. And slow down. Here we go.